Welcome to the Empowered to Connect podcast, where we come together to discuss a healing-centered approach to engagement and well-being for ourselves, our families, and our communities. I'm JD Wilson, and I'm your host. And today on the show, we've got a follow-up week talking about another connecting practice, following up on last week's Chasing the Why episode. So last week, we talked about the need behind the behavior and how do we look at kids' behaviors and actually try to look through those to find the needs that are being expressed behind the behavior, chasing the why. Why is this happening? Why is this always a response to X, Y, or Z certain environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you missed that one, definitely go back and listen to it. It is a great episode on one of our favorite connecting practices. This week, we've got another connecting practice. We're going to talk about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And you may have heard this being talked about a lot within the academic realm right now. Whether you're a teacher or whether you've been, listening up around your kids' schools with, administration and what they're trying to enforce or implement right now during the pandemic. At our kids' school in particular, I'd say that this is a massive point of conversation around virtual schooling and how do we help keep our kids engaged there. Well, we want to tilt this a little bit to where we're not talking about our kids today. We're going to talk about how we as parents and caregivers can have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset and why that's even important. So we've got Mo and Tona Ottinger here from ETC to talk about that. And before we get started, just a reminder that next week we kick off our transracial adoptive series. And so you're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be really great. One more reminder, if you're not following us on Instagram or liking us at Facebook, we would love to have your support. You'll be the first to know about exciting and fun initiatives and programs we got coming up, as well as every new episode that pops up here. It's an easy way to be able to share it with others that might want to hear the same content. So incredibly humbled and thankful for all the support that you guys have shown us so far. And the numbers keep going up, and we're just really happy and really thankful for it. So enjoy this episode now on a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset on the Empowered to Connect podcast. All right, we're back with Mo and Tona Ottinger. And today, guys, we're following up on last week where we talked about chasing the why. And part of doing that is having to become, students of our kiddos and having to learn patterns and look at the reason behind behavior that we're seeing. And so we had talked earlier about wanting to discuss this as a necessity for us as parenting. And so in order to do that, let's kind of set the foundation of for those who this term, this idea is brand new. Why don't we, Tona, if you don't mind, let's set the foundation for kind of where this term even came from to begin with.
Sure, absolutely. So there is a Stanford psychologist named Carol Dweck that kind of coined the term growth mindset. And I think for me, it's easiest to understand a growth mindset when I compare it to a fixed mindset. And so thinking about those things as being very, very different ways of thinking about ourselves and our circumstances and our situations. So when you think about a fixed mindset, she kind of explains that it assumes that our intelligence, our character, and our creative abilities are static or fixed, whether that's in a good, positive way, we would view that, or like in a negative way, that all of our abilities are fixed and given. So that presumes then that we can't really make change in any kind of meaningful way. It's kind of that, like you either have the juju or you don't have the juju. Yeah. But you understand what I'm saying. Like you got it or you don't got it.
Right.
So in a fixed mindset thinks about success or failure in this very sort of black and white way, that they strive for success, but they're also attempting to avoid failure. Whereas with a growth mindset, we see even failure as a springboard for growth or a way to stretch our current abilities or improve. So we're thinking about ability and capability as something that is not fixed, that it can change, that we can persevere. And so when you like a fixed mindset says, I'm either good at something or I'm not. I can either do it or I can't. My potential's predetermined. A fixed mindset also doesn't necessarily like to be challenged, and they might give up when they're frustrated. Fixed mindset considers feedback and criticism and takes that personally. And they also might avoid doing things that they are unsure about. So they're going to stick to the things that they know and feel comfortable with. Compared to a growth mindset says failure is an opportunity to grow and kind of takes the approach that I can learn to do anything I want to do. So, this ability to learn and grow, they see challenges as an opportunity to grow rather than something to be avoided. They say my effort and attitude determines my abilities. Growth mindset sees feedback as constructive and likes to try new things. One of my other things I very much love about the difference is a growth mindset can celebrate the success of others and see that as something to be inspired by rather than something to be intimidated by. So people with a growth mindset are often pretty good cheerleaders of their friends and family members and their successes. And so obviously we kind of, JD, you hinted at this, like we think about a growth mindset a lot when it comes to our kids because we want to cultivate that in them.
Yeah.
We want our kids to be flexible and see their future as something possible. We don't want them to view themselves as stagnant. You can think about this fixed and growth mindset, even about personality, like, oh, well, I just am who I am.
That's right.
Versus this ability to like actually change some of my am who I am kind of thing. What I love about this conversation in particular on this episode is thinking about how when we have or cultivate, think about growing a growth mindset, how that impacts our beliefs about ourselves, our future, our behaviors are predetermined by what kind of a growth mindset we have. And in this context, that really deeply impacts our relationships. So having a fixed mindset or a growth mindset really does change our views of relationships.
Which, let's talk about how this affects us as parents, which I hope that's why people are listening to the podcast, right?
That's right.
We're wanting to grow. We want to have a growth mindset.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. So I think the first thing is just being open to change. And I think overarching when we think about parenting, I just know for myself, really being introduced to Empowered to Connect. It was a shift. It was a change, and being open to that change. And so when I think about just my thoughts, my behavior, my actions, how I'm going to do parent, my tone of voice, when I think about nurture versus structure, all those things, it was, I got to change. I need to change. I need to be open to change. And not only open to change, but the belief that I can change, that I should change. And I think what's funny about our story, is that I'm sitting here now as a 49-year-old, and so we've got 6 kids, and we run the gamut from 20 down to 8, and like I will say, my young ones now, right? Like there's this, I probably came in with a little fixed, like, man, I'm tired. This is who I am. This is the way I've done it. Like and I've had to say, man, I've got to really have a growth mindset continually with each kid.
Yes.
Like overarching, I need to have a growth mindset, but also with each individual child, there needs to be a growth mindset as well.
Well, and I was sharing earlier with a friend of ours who's got young kids, and there was just kind of this the new parent freaking out that we all do, where you're asking questions to other people to make sure that you're not out of the ordinary, or you don't have abnormal situations or abnormal cases, or should they be doing this by this age or whatever. And similar to y'all, but not as far down the road and not as many kids. Like we've got 4 kids, right? And so like some of the questions were like, when should they change from a crib to a big kid bed? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I mean, we pushed it with the first one and it traumatized him. And so they're like, if they'd sleep in a crib now, I'd still have them in there now, But I think that experience we had on the front end of parenting with our first was that we came in, I think, with a fixed mindset from like an arrogant perspective. Like, well, if we know one thing, it's that like the Wilsons are going to be great parents. That's what everybody's always told us. We're so fun. We're so great with kids. We're so Christian and so knowledgeable, and we're just going to be great leaders of our children's hearts. And then they got here, and we realized we didn't know anything. And so, and more so than that, to be serious, what we realized was that the knowledge we did have already amassed was not applicable to the situation, and it was not working. And so it very quickly put us on our heels into a growth mindset. And I would say now it's a comfort zone, whereas it started off very, very much getting there from being defeated. Like we took an L and had to jump into a growth mindset because the fixed mindset we had to be broken off.
JD, I feel like Mark and I can relate to what you were saying about like when you started parenting, you just thought you were going to be a good parent. Neither one of us came into parenting thinking that we were going to have to learn how to parent.
Yeah.
That parenting was going to have to be something where it was a growth journey in terms of like learning how to parent. I mean, we knew that we would need to figure out how to change diapers and feed children. But in terms of like growing and who we were as human beings and changing our behaviors and our actions and our ways of understanding people's needs, we didn't think that we were going to need to understand how the brain was wired. I mean, there was so many things that coming into parenting, we really, JD, I think even as you said, you and Liz, like we just naively thought we're pretty good people and we're going to be able to just kind of do this parenting thing as just an expression of who we are, and our personalities are going to be enough. I mean, it was very much a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
Until we started hitting struggles. And then I feel like this is the part of parenting at that point is you really are standing at a crossroads where you either dig in and stay and become more rigid and fixed, or you make a different decision to say, I actually think there are some things here I need to learn. And honestly, by God's grace, I feel like we probably did dig in a little bit for a while, wouldn't you say? If I think back, I think we probably did get more rigid, and that just was more harm inducing. And then somewhere along the way, I feel like we realized we actually have to go learn some things, and we needed to learn some knowledge and skills. So that's the change that I feel like is incredibly important as a parent, is being willing to go learn some new things and then being willing to actually change and transform because of that knowledge.
Which we really do it in every aspect of our life. And so why would we not do it in parenting, right? We're asked to do it at work. We're asked to, it's just, you name it. We're learning skills everywhere, and we need to do it as parents.
In any context where you're teaching someone to do something else, like you're teaching them, you're not great right out of the bat. It's whether it's music, whether it's a video game, whether it's sports, whether it's, a new concept in school or a new phase of school or style of school, like whatever it is, you're right. We do have this ease with watching our kids fail early on and saying, oh, don't worry, like you're going to get better at throwing, or you know what, these chords are hard, but you'll get calluses built up in your fingers and then it's fine. And yet, like in parenting, we kind of have this mindset. We have to be knowledgeable, and we're supposed to be experts now, so we can't really admit failure. And I think that's, and we talked about the 4 different things, that second piece we talked about before was to embrace challenges. And so, like, I think the the thing that kind of fixes in my mind is you go from like a fixed mindset, we have struggles and hardships and all this, and growth mindset, you have challenges that you take on. Because a challenge is different than a struggle. Like no one's willingly signing up to struggle, but challenges sound like something that can be overcome or something that has an element of excitement or newness or growth to it. And so I think that mindset as a parent helps you also to be able early on to see hard things as good in your journey, right?
Absolutely. We embrace them.
Yeah.
Like which is our second point, is that we embrace the challenge,
Yeah.
and we persevere through that, and we stick through it, and we know um, that we're going to grow from it, and our children are going to grow from it, and we're going to be better for it. Um, we we want those challenges, and so absolutely.
I even think about what Dr. Blackney, when we talked through the episode about the necessity of hugs and what it does and all that element of as a family being able together to tackle challenges. When you're on the other side of that, there's got to be some psychological and kind of enzymatic even like benefits that happen. Those bonding juices are flowing within the family after going through one of those things together,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I think when you stand beside your child and say, there is a challenge ahead of us, and we are going to, in this connected, safe partnership relationship, we are going to persevere through that challenge together. There is something so beautiful and good and right about solidifying the strength of that attachment relationship and sharing each other's strength to get through difficult challenges.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that modeling that growth mindset for our kids about things they are struggling with, things that we are struggling with, things that we may be having to work on together as a family unit. I mean, those things really do deepen relationship.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that we talk a lot about, rupture and repair, and how we are stronger on the other side of repair. And so as we tackle challenges together without running from them, but pushing into them and through them, I really do believe there's just beauty and hope and healing on the other side of adversity and persevering through it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think parents ever set out to do this, but I think so often in the midst of a struggle, it can turn into us versus them.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
and that is not intentional, but it's like that's the battle, that's the
Mhm.
challenge, right?
Mhm.
And what this is saying is no. There's no win in an us versus them. Like that is
Mhm.
lose all over the place. It is you and me against that challenge. We are together. It's us together.
And if we as parents can fall into the trap of saying, and even unfortunately seeing our kids' struggles as, um, things we take personally, or
Yeah.
attacks on us, or, burdensome. And if you've heard me, talk for any period of time, I do really look at those moments as invitations. I mean, we
Yeah.
can be invited to become changed
Mhm.
through those opportunities to grow with our kids. It is not about fixing anybody. Like, nobody needs to be fixed here.
Mhm.
Right.
Nobody is broken beyond repair. We are
Yeah.
all growing together. Like, that's a family growth mindset. This is not about me fixing anybody's broken anything.
Right.
This is about being humble together, moving into challenge and invitation to growth through our corporate challenges. our collective, that's the word, our collective struggle, because we're all have to work through our own stuff. So
That's good.
embrace those challenges as invitations to grow together, individually, and as a family, and as parents in relationship with our kiddos.
Which I think flows in nicely to our third point, is that we're going to see mistakes as learning opportunities. And I think as parents that are practicing connecting parenting, we own our mistakes. I mean, that is absolutely we're humble, we're quick to repair, and we step into that, and we know the importance of it.
Yeah. Well, and once you kind of get on the same team together and you kind of get the boat going in the same direction and everybody's kind of facing the same direction in the boat as a team, that prepares you for that next lesson, to prepare everyone else. Hey, there's gonna be some hard things that happen. And I can think of there's been a few moments in our family's life where we are standing outside in the hall. We've gathered everybody in the room, and we've got to share something crazy with them, and knowing it was going to break their hearts, and walking in and just going, okay, well, and the message we were leaving them with is like, look, this is really hard, and we're all in this together, and we're all going to get through this together, and we're all going to walk. And I think that that mentality gave everybody in that circle freedom to then share, this sucks, this is hard, or to cry spontaneously and just say, I'm just thinking about the situation again. It's just really hard, and I don't want to, I don't want to deal with this anymore, or whatever. And we can all say, I know, same, us too. Yeah. And it erases, if you're embracing the challenges, if you're kind of looking at your unit as a family, as a team, instead of, like you said, Mo, the us versus them, then those learning opportunities can become things that, the more seasoned members of the team who have seen these things happen before can say, hey, look, we made this mistake, but guess what? That's how we get better. And that's how we learn, and that's how we develop ourselves and can grow. And so we're really pumped about this. And so, and that can be super freeing to be able to live in a way where you are not afraid of failure is an absolute game changer as a human. And this is one of those first steps in building that into our kids.
Well, and I think that you just said it, like we're going to make mistakes because we are human, right? And it's through mistakes that we learn as parents. And every parent listening to this needs, we're doing our best, but we're going to make mistakes, and we need to own that and be with great humility, just look our kids in their eye and just say, we're sorry. I'm sorry. And let's learn.
Some of our older kids, it's been interesting because we didn't start out parenting this way. And because we are still growing, not perfectly, we have perfectly arrived at parenting, but we are still growing. But because we didn't start out parenting this way, some of our older kids have watched us grow and change, and can even speak back to when we did things differently. And so being able to model for them that we are learning from our previous mistakes in how we reacted, or how we responded, or how we disciplined, or any of those kinds of things that you do as parents, the overreactions, all of those things, because we are growing, and in the growing, we're practicing. And what we do know is you do get better. That's a growth mindset. You practice something, it becomes more of a habit. And we believe that we can change. We have adapted the growth mindset that we can actually change our behavior as parents towards our kids with practice and persistence. And so it's been fun to be some years into this kind of parenting and having our older kids look back and remember when. And instead of beating ourselves up, what I actually think has happened is we have given them the freedom to change and make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because we're saying, that's right, that's part of growing as a person. And it's part of learning something new and then stumbling through the transformation of like implementing that in your life. And it takes practice to change behavior. And so we've actually given ourselves and our kids freedom to stumble through growth.
Yeah. Oh, that's
because
so
they
good.
remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, they remember. Unfortunately, I wish that we could delete some of those experiences, but I've come to also really count them as gifts too, because I think we're freeing up some room in our family for not having to be perfect for any of us.
100%. I mean, one of our kids referenced earlier today, and it can be lighthearted now because enough time has passed, but just like when we were just trying to learn how to get kids to sleep early on, we just did took some approaches that were unhealthy and just like and putting up baby gates and stuff and trying to, I made the comment, I'm not going to be like these, goofballs who are army crawling out of their kid's room after falling asleep with them in there. Like, I'm like, it's going to be time for bed. I'm going to say, hey, good night. I love you. Go to bed. All right. And I'm just walking out of there. And anyone who is.
And we could all laugh.
Oh.
Have you army crawled out? Have you gone?
Army crawl is too loud. I wouldn't dare army crawl. No. Now it's more like a Navy SEAL, like just like tips of my fingertips and my toes. Like I'm like Spider-Man. But here's the thing, like anybody who is not laughing at this, let me just give you the freedom. Like if you have this mentality going in of this hardcore, like, here's how I'm going to be, and this is how it's going to be in our family, and I'm not taking this for an answer. And you got to be prepared for one of you to break. And either you break your kids or you break first. Yes. And here's what can happen now for us. I had that mindset. It was not working, and it ended with me and a 3-year-old sitting outside of a room, both of us bawling at 11 o'clock at night. I had started trying bedtime at 7, and 4 hours later, we're still, both of us it goes from us being furious with each other to then just like crying in the middle of the floor. And Elizabeth walked upstairs and looked and she laughed for a second because it was so ridiculous what she was seeing. Both of us just bawling in the floor together. And she was like, what happened? And that was one of these like kind of hallmark moments in our family, or milestone moments in our family's history, where our kids know, like, that was one of the things that we still will go back. And sometimes I will just go back if I'm sensing that that's, there's some of that spirit living still. I will go back and sort of, bring it back up to talk about it again and apologize. And look, we all make mistakes and we all got to learn together. And when the thing that is so beautiful now is what we're getting to teach our kids and what they're, getting to see in us, because there are plenty of mistakes to watch, is that when mistakes can't even knock you down and keep you down, all of a sudden you are unstoppable as a person. So if mistakes can be learning opportunities and not end points and stopping points in your growth, then what do you do? Like if you're always growing, this is a place where you as a family, the sky's the limit for you guys in this process. And so we're, that's obviously the goal.
Yeah, that's good. Which leads to the last point, which I think we've all kind of, through our stories, just said that we need to focus on the process and the journey. That this is not just about quick results, but the parenting, it's a journey, and it's a process, and it's the long game. It is keeping the long game in mind. That this is not just, man, I've got 18 years and I actually have a lifetime here in this, in different seasons for me, different seasons for my kids. There's just, it's a process, and it's a journey.
Man.
There's a saying called the power of not yet. And I that feels applicable to me when I think about the journey, even when I'm thinking about my own growth mindset, about just realizing I'm not there yet, even, that I want to keep thinking about what else I can learn and how else I can grow. And where we talk about like where our children are going to continue to invite us. What
Yeah.
what activities haven't we learned yet? What information is one of them going to teach us? What opportunities for personal development and transformation is one of our kids still yet to walk us down with them? I mean, that's it. It's the power of not yet for them and for us, because we're still journeying together. And so that's it for me. Just continuing to say there's still journey ahead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's journey ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's imperfect people trying to parent imperfect people, then it's always going to be not yet. And there is something really freeing in that. If there were those who were perfect out there, and then some of us are just not perfect, struggling, it's a totally different dynamic. But I think for, to be able to teach our kids that, I just think about how many times I was, beating myself up, at my parents' basement as a teenager, just being like, I can't believe I messed up this way, or I can't believe I made this mistake, or I can't believe, instead of kind of being able to laugh it off, to go, well, that was crazy. What happened there? Let's figure that out, and let's get back on the horse tomorrow morning, And it has saved myself a lot of heartache. And obviously, part of that's how we arrive at this point today, but yeah, the journey of it. And if we think about, we shared last week a couple of like fall break stories that we'd had as families, and very few of those stories were about the end of the hike or the end of the roller coaster or whatever. Like our kids have, as I talk to grandparents and they're telling about their trip to a theme park, they were like, and then we were walking through this area and there was this and this and that. And so they remember the entire journey of the day as we got to enjoy that together. And I think that's how we all capture those stories together. And so if we can embrace that, I think it's the future is good. Guys, I think that's a great point for us to stop today. Thank y'all thanks for bringing this today. And I think that if those of you are out there who are listening to this and you are wanting to get more of these connecting principles, more of this content, stay tuned. We are as we are figuring out the pandemic and our new rhythms and our safe ways for delivery and all of that. There are some classes in cities that are starting to pop up now for parents to jump into via Zoom or otherwise. And so stay tuned on that front. Well, that's going to do it today for us here at the Empowered to Connect podcast. Big thanks to Mo and Tona. Big thanks to Kyle Wright, who mixes, edits, engineers the audio that you hear. And a big thanks to Tad Jewett, who composed all the music that you hear here on the ETC podcast. Until next week, the kickoff of our Transsexual Adoption Series, we will see you on Facebook. We'll see you on Instagram. We will see you in the comments section on empoweredtoconnect.org/podcast. But thank you for following. Thank you for listening today. We hope to hear from you soon on the Empowered to Connect podcast.